What is up, party people? Welcome to MTGA Tasting Notes. This wine here today needs no introduction, but we'll do it anyway. This is our Let It Run Cabernet Franc from the 2023 vintage. Very much inspired by Mega Man. Even had a little bit of space for the lovely HBIC and our fur baby Grover on top of the barrels on there. Had a lot of fun, as always, putting this label together as it continues to be our game-inspired artist series that we release. Cabernet Franc, I'm very much back by popular demand. This is the story that I probably say every year when I talk about this wine, is that, and I'll touch on it just briefly for some of you that might be experiencing this wine for the first time. Cabernet Franc was not something that we brought in to our winery to create this wine. This very much kind of happened by mistake. And the reason for that is that Cabernet Franc, as some of you might know, is typically, it's very much a blending variety. It's something that you use as a component with other wines, whether that's a Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot. You look at Bordeaux, for example, with the left and right bank will use Cabernet Franc quite often. You see a lot of people here in Napa for the red blend program, their Cabernet program and things, using Cabernet Franc as a blender. And then there's a handful of us that kind of feed this cult following that this variety has. And it is something that has fascinated me over the last few years of starting to make this wine. But something that now, I mean, arguably rivals our single barrel Merlot in terms of its popularity. This is something that it's arguably the most structured, the most intense wine that we make. It is something that just is unique, certainly stands out compared to some of the other wines that we've produced over the years. It has this very cool little niche in our program that has very quickly, in the course of just a couple of years, carved out for itself, where things like Merlot took many, many years to kind of make a name for itself once again. Now, this is coming from down in Carneros, from the 2023 vintage. Cooler climate, a little bit more of that coastal influence coming from the San Pablo Bay there, which really gives it this great backbone and this great structure. Now, the issue with cool climate and Cabernet Franc in particular, and this is another little fun trivia fact, so next time you're watching Jeopardy, you might, get a few points or earn a few dollars here, is that Cabernet Franc is one of the parents of Cabernet Sauvignon. So you have Cabernet Sauvignon, right? Its parents, and the two varieties that crossbred, hundreds of years ago to make that variety were Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc. So a white wine and a red wine grape. So Cabernet Franc in particular really added a lot of the backbone, the structure to the wine. And it's something that can lean, much like Sauvignon Blanc can lean as well, towards some greener kind of characteristics. And I find with Cab Franc that it's kind of like walking the edge of the knife. It's very hard to get like this perfect balance Cab Franc without some of those savory green notes or some of kind of the overripe, maybe more intense fruit notes. And I try to walk that edge as best I can, because I love to make wines that are a little bit more restrained, a little bit more structured. I'm not afraid of a little bit of those savory characteristics. I don't want the wine to be overtly green, like you're eating a raw bell pepper. Like, that's no fun. There needs to be some other fruit characteristics in there to give you a little bit of lift and a little bit of like sexiness to the wine, right? But if we're gonna make a cooler climate, at least as far as Napa is concerned, Cabernet Franc, we're gonna have to kind of push it towards a little bit more of those riper characteristics so that it isn't overpowered by some of those greener notes. And that's always the challenge sourcing for us from this cooler area. One that even in 2023, which was a cooler vintage, maybe a little bit closer to kind of the historical average, but cooler than what we've experienced recently, something that can be even more challenging because you gotta wait really late into the season for these grapes to get there. And of course, the longer you wait, you have more risk of rain and other issues, especially down in Carneros, bird damage and things of that, where flocks of birds will come and start trying to pick away and eat at your grapes. You're setting yourself up for some additional risk. The later you go into a season, the longer that season goes, right? So there's a lot of kind of stuff that we have to really pay attention to in making this wine. And a lot of it is outside of what we do here in the cellar. What's interesting actually about Cab Franc, once we get here in the cellar, because what we bottle after the last harvest is sitting in barrel, just down that way, kind of behind me a little ways, is that Cab Franc, it gets pretty feisty within the first couple of months. Typically December, it tastes just fine, but as you get into January, February, it gets a little tight. It can get a little reductive, and it kind of fights back a little bit. That's always been my experience with Cab Franc. I actually haven't honestly talked to anyone else about it. But for some reason, there is this like adolescent phase as you start the aging process for Cab Franc that you have to be a little bit more hands-on and on top of it, because if you're not, it gets worse before it gets worse, you know? And if you happen to just kind of catch it at the right time, and as I was barrel tasting those barrels behind me, not a week ago, 2 weeks ago, before I recorded this, I was like, oh, it's time to do this. Like in the next 2 weeks, we got to get this done. Otherwise we're going to start, the work's going to get more intense. So the preventative medicine is officially started here in the cellar for some of our wines. But once you get through that, it kind of settles into this nice little group. It takes a little bit more babying along, but Cab Franc gets there. You just got to pay a little bit more of a kind of just close attention to it to make sure it gets where you want to go. Now on the nose, this certainly is kind of like that deepest, one of the deepest kind of like richest characteristics. Even though we use 100% new oak on this, you almost don't notice it. I do love the barrel that we use. It's a barrel that I've been using since 2013 from the Sylvan cooperage. Some of you who have watched a lot of my tasting notes have seen the green vest that I wear every once in a while. That's from them, because you buy enough barrels, you get swag, which is nice. Not above free stuff, my friend, certainly not. But there's also just this this really nice core to it. There's a touch of the floral notes on there, kind of like your violet, you know, kind of thing. Not too crazy. As you swirl, you get a little bit of the vanilla. You get not so much of the baking spice kind of things. The barrel lends itself to kind of the sweeter tones, not overt like sugar at all, but you know, it just kind of like, okay, like there's just this nice groove to it. But man, there's just this nice, and for me, Cab Franc tends to have almost this like blueberry core to it. Like it's that, but it's like blueberry pie. Especially this, it's this nice concentrated, just beautiful fruit characteristic with like the best like perfectly baked crust on it. Very much akin to like my relatives up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan who love you get those Michigan blueberries, like the tiny ones that are like super flavorful. That's what we're talking about here. It doesn't really seem like much, and then you try it and you're like, oh, this is a whole different ballgame. Like I'm a little biased towards Michigan blueberries. What can I say? Man, and you can see me like you can feel it. This is why I always say like the Cabernet Franc is arguably the biggest one we make because it's chewy. Like there's just this density to the wine where it's like it feels like you could, as you're tasting it, like I could cut this with a fork and knife, right? It is a go big or go home wine. And it's certainly it's even bigger and bolder than some of the Cabernets we make, save maybe one of them. But it's not so much that it's overpowering. I think this is the one thing that can hang people up when it comes to big wines like this, is that when you experience that tannin, that acidity, and the fruit characteristics are there, but the flavor can be so much and the structure can be so much, it's like, oh man, like what is that? And it's kind of the iron fist and the velvet glove a little bit. That's, I think, probably the best descriptor for our Cab Franc, is that you're like, it looks and feels sexy, but man, it kind of clocks you a little bit, man. It's something that does not pull a punch. I will say this is probably one of our wines that, if there's one that I would say like hang on to it, let it lay down, it's this guy. Just because of, we typically make wines that are of a higher acidity, a little bit more refreshing. This having that added tannin component to it has just so much density. I'm like, don't be afraid of aging this wine. If you're looking for a wine to like save for a special occasion, this is a great one to do it with, because It's great right now, especially if you love that like reach out and grab you kind of wine. But it's only going to get better with time. You know, this is something that I always get very excited about for the couple of cases I set aside for myself to see how it ages for, you know, a couple of decades. I'm like, man, I want to know what this tastes like at like the 10 or 12 year mark, the 15 to 17 year mark. And there's kind of these moments where I'm like, oh, this is going to get to a point where my inner wine geek is, you know, just excited for where this wine is going to end up. It's certainly a wine that you can enjoy now, and it's got just this great body, flavor. It's just got everything you could possibly want from a Napa Valley Cabernet Franc. And Carneros even being a cooler area, this doesn't show that. There's just this amazing, you know, body and kind of depth and richness to it that you might not expect from a cooler area in the valley. But man, it gets there. It absolutely gets there. So I hope this is something that you all have a chance to try. I mean, our Cab Franc and the Cab Franc that we make ends up going into a little bit of our red blend or Cabernet program as well. So it kind of like finds its way into other places as a blending variety. But man, for this 100% Cab Franc, it's really a great version of an iteration. I hope that you have a chance to try it. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been some more MTGA tasting notes. Be sure to check out the other tasting notes that we have available. Like the videos, subscribe to the channel here to dive into more wines, cellar harvest updates, our podcast, all kinds of good stuff you can find here. You can also check us out on Instagram, the Book of Face, the social network formerly known as Twitter. We try and post content here, there, and everywhere to make sure that we kind of bring you further into the world of wine and what this industry, this beautiful industry, is all about. I hope you have an excellent rest of your day, week, month, whatever the case may be. And we'll see you here next time for another round of tasting notes. Cheers.